Hello everyone, and welcome back to Todos Santos. This is episode number 20. I hope you enjoyed that new intro. It's pretty hard to find really any sort of good Caribbean or salsa music that's free or low cost and is royalty free. So it took a while to find that track. I hope that you like it. It seems to fit pretty well for me, so let me know what you think of that. Anyway, let's get into what we're doing in this episode. So starting this episode and continuing on for about the next 4 episodes, we're going to be doing some expansion. And so I was starting to lose inspiration working on the downtown area, and I wasn't really feeling it. So I decided to hop into Google Maps and basically drive around on the roads around San Juan and try to get some inspiration. And so I took some notes, and a lot of the things I was noticing and focusing on were in the lower density residential areas. So I decided to just start kind of making a prototypical lower density residential area. And so what we're starting with today is we're working on this terraforming here, and we're first of all lowering the terrain because a lot of the terrain is way too high, so we're having to deal with more slopes than I really want to deal with in this map. And then what I'm doing is going back and adding in these hills, because one thing I noticed about San Juan and a lot of other Caribbean cities as well is that obviously their elevation isn't very high, but they do have quite a few hills. And often those hills are left undeveloped and are either parks or natural areas, or they have various utilities placed on top of them. So we're just laying the foundation for that sort of landscape and topography, which are going to be continuing on through the rest of the city. And I think it just adds a little bit more realism, and it looks really cool in my opinion once we're done with it. But we're not focusing on the hills too much this episode, as we're moving on to this freeway. Which you might have noticed I connected to the wrong part of the freeway at the other end there, but we're going to go back and fix that in a second here. But anyway, this freeway runs from the main street that cuts through downtown, and this is going to be pretty much the main artery that carries most people into downtown, I think, from the rest of the city. So we're making it quite wide. It takes up a lot of space, and we're going to have a whole frontage road system that runs alongside it that's going to connect all these neighborhoods into the freeway. So that's pretty cool. Again, all this detailed freeway stuff is going to be done in the future. And this episode is just about laying the foundations and I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do when I started building this area. It was more just to test some ideas out. So I cut out a lot of preliminary tests and stuff like that. But we end up really just kind of laying down the spine for what we're gonna build off of in this area. And don't worry, we're going to go back and we're going to finish off the downtown after we do this area, and then we're going to go back after that and finish off the Old Town Island. We're going to do that whole area. I feel like doing this little offshoot project kind of revitalized my interest in the city. I have a lot of footage recorded, obviously of finishing this portion, and then also going back and filling in all those gaps that we've missed. So we have a lot of really cool episodes coming up. Also, I should mention that I've made some technical changes starting in this episode. So the first and most obvious thing is obviously that I have a new theme. I thought that the old one was just not quite the right color, and this one has a really nice look of sort of a mix of dryness and lushness that I think is going to complement the sorts of trees and buildings and stuff that we're putting down. I really like it, and we're going to be using it pretty much for the next 10 or so episodes at least, and if everyone likes it, then we'll just keep using it for the rest of the series, so let me know what you think of that. Additionally, I started recording in a higher frame rate and rendering at the same 60 frames per second, so what that means is that the time-lapse is running quite a bit slower. I just felt that it was too fast before, so now it should feel a little smoother and a little easier to follow what's going on. One result of that is that because the episodes are going to be about the same length, maybe a little shorter, it's going to be more focused on kind of catching the interesting parts instead of just showing pretty much everything that I do. But I think it makes for a more watchable and more enjoyable episode, and I hope that you agree with that. So for the layout of the freeway, I'm really going pretty freeform. I want it to be, I want it to make some sense, like they have a vaguely grid-like system with some freeways going more east and west and some going more north and south. But at any given stretch of the freeway, it's going to be fairly windy with not too many straight sections. And I'm going to try to make it work within that geography we're creating of some flat areas and some hilly areas. So it's not going to be a super boring, just grid freeway. It's going to kind of work with the environment, and I'll just try to keep it interesting. And we're really going to be taking inspiration from a lot of different areas that have caught my interest looking at San Juan on Google Maps. We're not going to be following the road layout of San Juan directly. We're just going to be taking inspiration and trying to capture the general feeling. Like here we have it winds through the hills between those two hills there, and then it turns into this straight sunken area, and we'll probably have some sort of commercial and residential development across here. And you can see I'm doing the old trick of putting a trailer prop there to make sure that the bridge looks like it's the right height. So my goal with the overall look for the freeway is that I want it to basically seem like it's been kind of an afterthought, and it's been placed in at a much later date than most of the development in the city. So it's going to come up against a lot of obstacles, and it's not really going to go from point A to point B very directly, and we'll just try to keep it interesting. So here we're starting on an interchange, and the design for this interchange I pretty much copied from one in San Juan, which you can see here. And it ended up being not quite perfect. It's probably a little bit too big, and we're not going to go into any interchange details this episode. That will probably be quite a while in the future. But as far as the actual functionality and the overall silhouette of the interchange, I like how it came out. So I'm going to let you watch me begin to put that together, and I'll be back in just a minute. I hope that you enjoy this segment. I'm back. So you can see me struggling a little bit with the terrain here because we're switching from the area that I lowered and flattened a little bit into the area that's still a little higher. So it was kind of a struggle to get the slope right there. I think what I'll probably do, I haven't done this yet, but I'll probably go in and just flatten out the rest of the map so that we can kind of more pick and choose where we're going to fight these terrain battles instead of just having these like arbitrary hills that are kind of annoying and not very fun to build with. And that way we can just have a little bit more control over the way the city looks. As far as terrain is concerned, I should probably also mention that there are some mountains, or just like really tall hills at least, at the kind of southern edge of the map, far away from where we're building. We're probably, assuming that the save still works by the time we get over there, we'll probably do something over there. Just create like some forested hills with maybe a little bit of agriculture or some sort of like national park or something like that. That should be fun, but again, that's like way in the future, so don't worry about that. And right now, I just really want to focus on building out the core of the city and like not leaving too many gaps, because I'm a little concerned that if we keep, expanding outward and not filling in everything, we're just going to have a city with some like filled in areas and then areas that we haven't developed at all. And I'd rather have like a smaller, well-developed city than like one that's really spread out, at least for this series, because I'd like to continue to focus on things, at least in some detail. So we're probably for a while going to be doing a lot of development of areas we've already kind of set the groundwork for. And this is probably going to be the last episode of like really major Freeway expansion for quite a while. So if you like the more detailed episodes, those are coming. So we're getting pretty close to the end of the Freeway build, or at least the Interchange build. I either lost or really stupidly forgot to record the last little bit of footage of building this Interchange. So we kind of jump here pretty soon from this mostly finished Interchange to this completed Interchange. So sorry about that, but it's pretty much stuff that we've all seen before, so I don't think you missed that much. And now we're just going to put a few finishing touches, make sure all the lanes line up properly. And I'll mention this one more time. We have not gotten to the point in the series where I have all these new awesome mods like intersection marking tool and node controller, but those are coming very soon. This footage is much more recent now, so we're getting close to that. But now we're going to start laying down some surface roads that are going to integrate into this freeway. So I'm going to let you watch me lay down some of these, and I will be back in just a couple of minutes. I hope that you enjoyed the segment. I'm back. So one mod that I did have at this point in the recording are these big American roads, which are so awesome. They're basically what I've always wanted in this game. So I forget the mod author's name, but I'm going to put a link down in the description. I highly recommend you check them out. They are a lot of fun to use. They both will improve your traffic and also just the appearance of your city. I mean, they're so cool. And they're probably a good choice moving forward to move on from Network Extensions 2, which I'm still using for this save, and I'm going to keep using it because most of the roads are from that pack. But if you're starting a new like American style city, I highly recommend that pack of roads. And for the surface roads, I'm doing pretty much the same philosophy as the Freeway. They're going to be integrated into the landscape, and they're going to be, we're not going to have too many straight roads just cutting right down through the middle of the city. I'm going to try to work with the terrain and just imagine that these roads have been tacked on to one another over time. So there's no like overarching logic as to how these roads are supposed to work. They've just kind of been added in as needed over time. And of course, as I say that, we're laying down a straight stretch of freeway, but I do want to integrate some areas of that, especially as we move farther out from the core of the city, just because there'll be more recent developments where they're going to put more effort into creating a little bit more of a logical road system that's a little easier to navigate and also to develop, and also for me to develop, because, you know, working with curved roads constantly can be a little exhausting in this game, although it's totally worth it and a lot of fun. Okay, and now we've come back around to the interchange, and we're going to just make sure all these lanes line up so you can kind of see the logic of how this works. It's sort of like a mix between a stack interchange and a cloverleaf, except it is unlike a cloverleaf in that there's no weaving, because the people merging on to the north-south freeway from top to bottom there on screen, unless they're attempting to do a U-turn, they get their own lane added. And then the people that are peeling off the north-south freeway to head west have their own added exit lane. So that's kind of a cool design. It takes up quite a bit of space, but a lot less than a stack interchange, and I feel like it kind of fits this environment where we're moving away from like the really intense urban development, and we're kind of halfway between urban and like really low density suburban kind of area. So it just felt like a good fit for here. And now for the last couple minutes, I'm just kind of drafting up some surface road ideas. Like we have this weird kind of Y split here. I'm not really sure how that's going to work out. I'm sure all of these surface roads are going to change to some degree as we actually go into place buildings down. But we're not worrying about that right now. Just kind of getting a very, very rough sketch of the sort of style that I'm going for. And now we're jumping back one more time into the interchange. I just wanted to make sure that it had as low a profile as possible. I don't want this to look like a huge, crazy stack interchange or anything. So I'm just making sure that each level is as low as it can be. Again, it's not detailed at all. It looks pretty ugly when you get up close. That will all be changed in the future. I didn't really feel like going in and detailing all these roads right now. We are, however, going to do something kind of interesting with this freeway area in a couple episodes. I won't spoil it right now, but it's kind of cool and it involves quite a bit of detail. So I hope that you will look forward to that. In the meanwhile, thank you so much for watching this episode of Todos Santos. Feels really good to be back after a bit of a short break. So I hope to see you on the next episode. Adios.